All right, guys, so just finishing up our 8-7 notes. We worked examples 1, 2, and 3. And the last time we were together, we're going to finish up with 4 and 5. And that will be it, okay? So on example 3, we basically practiced how to use the formula that helps us to factor a difference of two squares, which, just to review, is that a plus b times a minus b. Remember what it means to find a and b. Those relate to the first and last term. All right, so looking at example 4, these are also difference of squares. One thing that kind of physically tells me that is that, the most obvious thing is that they're 2 terms instead of our normal 3 terms, but also that every term is a perfect square. Okay, so that's a clue to me that this is going to factor out to in the form a plus b times a minus b. So once I know that, then it's just a matter of finding A and finding B. Does anybody remember how to use this first term to find A? A would be the what of the first term? 2 words. Square root. Does anybody think they could find me the square root of 16x squared? That's part of it for what, Addison? For x. Okay. And so the square root of the last term is going to be b. That's a little bit easier. With the square root of 81, you can just say it, 9. All right, so a is 4x, b is 9. Then I just want to sub in, and I know this factors 2. 4x plus 9 times 4x minus 9. Okay, so why don't you guys try that last one, and this will be, we'll finish a few more at the bottom that look pretty much the same, but are just a little bit different. I'll give you about 45 more seconds or so, and then we'll go over them. And I should say congratulations to Ms. Kiesler with the Dazzlers' big win, right? So good job. I think we have more Dazzlers in the class, but maybe they aren't back yet. But if I missed anybody, congrats. Good job. I heard it was just a dazzling performance. All right. So call on somebody. I won't call on you if you weren't here last time. Isaiah, were you able to come up with just the final answer? Nailed it. 5d plus 8 times 5d minus 8. Anybody have any questions on that? Good job, sir. All right, so ready to move on? Okay, so we will work on this kind of more as we go. But, what do we see here? Common factor, right? So if you ever are factoring and there's a common factor, the first step is what we're doing on the DMR. You've got to factor out a greatest common factor first, or you're not going to be able to factor, whether you're doing just a regular trinomial or one of these special cases. It's not going to work unless you factor out a common factor first. All right, so this will just be extra practice for step 1 on like what we're doing on our DMR. So anybody know, looking at A, what's the factored form of 24g squared minus 6? Anybody know what my greatest common factor for 24g squared and minus 6 are? Yes? Just 6, right? So the last term doesn't have any g on it, right? So it's just going to be 6, okay? So we're going to rewrite this as 6 times whatever's left after we divide both of them by 6. So 24g squared over 6 would be 4g squared. Negative 6 divided by 6 would be negative 1, so minus 1. Also notice that like before we divided by the 6, 24g squared is not a perfect square because 24 is not a perfect square. Minus 6 is not a perfect square, right? So, but now after we divide, we are left with 2 perfect squares, okay? So we know at this point then that 6 has got to be part of my final answer. So then it's just a matter of, we know it's a plus b times a minus b. So we say a is the square root of this guy. So that's going to be 2g. And then b is the square root of this guy. So 1. Okay. So then my final answer is 6 times the quantity 2g plus 1 times 2g minus 1. So if you have a GCF, you end up with, in factored form, not 2 factors like we normally have, but a third factor, which is just a constant, okay? So a little bit trickier there. Let's do the next one together, but it's going to be the exact same process. So, Andrew, tell me what the GCF on looking at B is. What's the GCF? Yep. 12. All right. Now the next person's going to tell me what's left after I divide 12t squared and minus 48 by 12. So Gannon, can you tell me what goes in the parentheses? Nope. Let's see. Izzy, can you help with that? Addison? All right. T plus what? All right. So a couple mistakes there. Part of it's right. Kira, can you correct the mistakes? Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, actually, that's it. Sorry. So, yeah, that's it. T squared minus 4. So, yeah, just 12, 12t squared, because we're still having trouble with this. That's why I'm writing it out. 12t squared over 12 is just t squared. And minus 48 over 12 is minus 4. That's what we're doing to get those 2 terms. Okay. All right. So I'm going to give you about 30 more seconds now, and I'm going to call on somebody else for my final answer. So it's going to start with 12 times, and then you have two more factors after that. So try to be ready in about 30 seconds. All right, Lily, can you fill in the last 2 parentheses for me on that one? So she said t squared plus 2 and t squared minus 2. I'm going to give her the plus 2 and the minus 2. What's the correction on the first part of those? Do you know it? That's all right. Andrew, what is it? Just t, right? When we take the square root of t squared, that's t, right? The square root of t squared is not t. The square root of t squared is t. So t plus 2, t minus 2 is what we were looking for, okay? And again, just like when I make my z's look weird, like I don't write z's in real life with a mark through them. I don't write t's in real life with a tail on them, right? But it looks like a plus sign without that. So in math, sometimes you got to make your letters look different than your symbols, okay? All right, now I'm going to have you do C without any coaching. Feel free to ask people around you. Are you wanting to answer? I'll come to you maybe if we need it, but I'm going to see if we can get it, see if a random person can get it. But Luke, I'm gonna have to say you were probably the MVP today, so I'm gonna give you a little reward there. Sometimes you just gotta have a couple people move the class along, you know. It's a big help, big deal. Feel free to even if you have no idea what to do, right? Feel free to ask somebody around you. Sometimes you gotta fake it till you make it. And remember, like, kind of what your final answer is going to look like. It's going to have 3 factors, right? It's going to have a constant and then 2 binomials, right? 1, 2, 3. I'm out of room here. All right, so trying to kind of fill in all 3 blanks. Sierra, were you able to finish example C? Oh, I need to start tallying how many no answers in a row I've gotten when I've called on virtual people, just to have some interesting data there. Andrew Isaacs, were you able to come up with a final answer for C? All right, good start. Mm-hmm. He nailed it. He nailed it. Very good. 3 times 2x plus 1 times 2x minus 1. Anybody have any questions on that? Very good. Very good. All right. So basically, you know, we kind of finished up with practicing our difference of squares more. We had one more type of example on the front side. On the front side, which is called a perfect square trinomial. So those are very, very similar. Anyways, use your notes as you're working through this assignment. It is posted and has been posted. So you know you're all the way caught up when you're done with 8.5 and you're done with 8.7. I'll post 8.7 scores and anybody who raised their score on 8.5 to 100%, I'll do that tomorrow, okay? So that's the plan. Actually, if you want to take a little break before we get started, that might not be a bad idea. So why don't you guys move around for a minute?